Dear students, for another lecture in the business law, and here we go. Just to start our lecture now. So we will start from the end of the contract, and we will talk about the contract about the selling goods. Selling goods. In Canada, the sales of goods is a specific area of contract law. So selling goods is a part of the contract law. It's a contract like any other contracts, sell and buy. An absolute sale occurs when the ownership of a product passes to the buyer. For example, a person buys a car from a dealership and becomes the owner of that car. An absolute sale occurs when the ownership of a product passes it to the buyer. So this will be the shift of the ownership from the seller to the buyer. This we call it absolute sale. Again, absolute sale occurs when the position of the product shifted from the seller into the buyer. In order for the sale to be valid, the car buyer must pay for the car. Without payment, then it will not be a valid contract. So it will be the valid contract when there is a pay. Then it will be a valid contract, which must be delivered to within a specific time. And then the buyer will gain little of the case of the car as well. So this is the second point about the car, about the selling a product or the absolute sale, like what we said before. The absolute sale, like you see here, okay, just go to the bottom. So absolute sale occurs when the ownership of a product passes to the buyer. So the ownership, when it shifted from the seller to the buyer, that means absolute sale. In order for this sale to be valid, the car buyer must pay for this car, which must be delivered to within a specified time, and then the buyer will gain the title of the car as well. So this is how it works about the selling goods. Conditions and warranties. What about them? What do you mean by the conditions and warranties? Sales contracts can have express or implied conditions. As example, and warranties. Express conditions. What are the express and what are those implied conditions? What are both of them? So express conditions that are essential to the contract and are clearly outlined in it. As example, the date of sale, the amount of sale, the delivery, where is it should be in the shops of the seller's shop or on the buyer's shop. Those all are express conditions. It must be clear there on the contract. It must be shown up on the contract. Express warranties, specific promises that manufacturers and sellers make about the standards of their goods and services. So those are the express warranties. Okay, those are promises that they will do regarding the product. Okay. The quality, the standard, all this comes under the express warranties. Implied conditions and warranties, promises that seller make to buyers that are not explicitly stated, is not mentioned in the contract. It's implied, it's not there. It's logically, but it's not written in a contract, but are presumed by law. It's logically, so it's presumed by law. As example, that the seller has title to the goods and has the right to sell them. Yeah. Simply when the seller is the one who sells, it's logically that this is an implied condition because he has the power, the seller has the power to sell. There is no need to say in the contract that I am the seller, I have the power to sell, because he already seller means that he has the power to sell, and there is no need to write it in the contract. there is no need to write it in the contract. So for that reason, we call it implied condition. For that reason, we call it implied condition. Okay. Many sellers add disclaimer clauses. Like what? To contracts, to lessen the risk of being sued for breach of implied warranties. These clauses are often in the fine print and are carefully regulated by most provinces and territories. So just in case, I might write it so that no one will sue me. The buyer in the future will not sue me. For the sources of the legal authority, we have the British common law and all the Canadian courts and legal system is descendant from the British common law. It depends on the work in the courts and tribunals, the British courts and the British tribunals, and that had been further developed from Canadian law precedents also. So it's evaluated by the use in Canada as well. Canada add to it some, and those what we call it the common law, like I said before. The Constitution Act, we are taking things like from the Constitution, and the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom guarantees the right and the freedom set out and the subject only such reasonable limits prescribed by law as can be demonstrably justified in a free and democratic society. So as example from the Charter of Rights, because we talk about the Constitution in a previous lecture, we talk about the Constitution. So those are examples about the acts of the Constitution. Let us see. Everyone has the following fundamental freedoms. This is the Charter of Rights. And the Charter of Rights is a part of the Constitution. So here it's the Charter of Rights and Freedom from the Constitution. This is an example of the Constitution or acts. This is an example of the acts of the Constitution. We said, wherever there is government, land, people, there must be constitution. Wherever there is land, government, people, there must be a constitution. So everyone has the following fundamental freedoms. Freedom of conscience and religious. I'm free in all my beliefs. I'm a Muslim, I'm free to be a Muslim. No one forced me to be a Muslim. I'm a Christian, no one forced me to be a Christian. I'm Jewish, no one forced me. I'm Buddhist, I'm Sikh, I'm whatever. So all this, you have the free to do this by yourself. You are free in choosing your religious. You are free in choosing your beliefs. Freedom of thoughts, beliefs, opinions, and expression. So if I tell you, give me an example of the Constitution for the Charters of Rights. So those are some examples here. The freedom of thoughts, beliefs, opinions, and expression, including freedom of the press and the media and the communication. So even the press itself is free to say what they want, to discuss what they want. They have the freedom to discuss what they want. Okay. Also, we have here the points is everyone has the freedom also of peaceful assembly. So once we are demonstrating for something, we have the freedom to demonstrate and for assembly, and freedom of associations. We are free to make any unions, to make any association. Those are permitted by the Constitution under the Charter of Rights and Freedom, the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. And by the way, the Constitution in Canada is comparatively recent one that it was set up in 1982. Okay. Every citizen of Canada had the right to vote in election member of the House of Commons, or Legislative Assembly, and to be qualified for a membership therein. So everyone is having the right to vote. Like now, if you want to elect Trudeau, or you want to elect Jagmeet Singh or the one of the green. So you are free to choose whoever you want to resemble you in the House of Commons. Still, we are in the Charter of Rights, which is one of the acts of the Constitution. Every citizen of Canada had the right to vote an election member of the House of the Commons or Legislative Assembly and to be qualified for membership therein. Every citizen of Canada has the right to enter, remain, and leave Canada. The freedom of traveling, the free of traveling in and out of Canada. This is also one of the charters of rights and freedom, which is a part of the acts of the Constitution, as we said before. So everyone is having the right to enter, remain, and leave Canada at any time. Okay, which we call it the right to move. We say this is the right to move. Every citizen of Canada and every person who has the status of permanent resident, this is citizen or a status of permanent residence, which will be equal to the citizen in some points of Canada, has the right to move and to take up residence in any province. So I'm free to sit in Ontario, or I will go to British Columbia, or I will go to Saskatchewan. So I'm free to choose whatever I want. To pursue the gaining of the livelihood in any province as well. And also to check which province he wants to work in, and he can work wherever he wants or leave wherever he will. We'll move into another new idea today about the criminal law, a part of the criminal law. Proceeding in criminal and penal matters. Any person charged with an offense had the right. So even anybody is having accused or charged with doing offense, he has the right to be informed without unreasonable delay of the specific office offense. He must be notified by the officer that he has an offense, to be tried within a reasonable time, not to detain him for 5-6 months in jail. Then after that start like what's happening in some countries of our third world. So no, this you should, in the case that he is accused, he has to go for a trial as soon as possible, not to wait for a long time. Not to be compelled to be a witness in proceeding against the person in respect of the offense. To be presumed innocent until proven guilty. So till he is guilty, till the time he's proven guilty, he's still an innocent person. Till the time he is proven that he was guilty, still I will deal with him as he is an innocent person and he didn't make mistakes until he is proved by the court or the jury that he is guilty. In that case, he is still innocent till he is proved by the jury or by the judge that he is did an offense and whatever, then is guilty. Then in that case, we say under an estimation, he is not guilty until it's proved that he is guilty. That's it. Not to be denied reasonable bail without just cause. No one, also in the Charter of Rights and Freedom, will never put someone behind the bars and without court, without any court or judge or decision. And yeah, there must be reason for putting him behind the bars. There must be reasons for putting him in jail. Okay, except in the case of an offense under military law, tried before a military tribunal to the benefit of trial by jury, where the maximum punishment for the offense is imprisonment for 5 years or more severe punishments. Okay. This is about the imprisonment of the offenses, which is a maximum of 5 years. Now, case law. Case law, this is a source of the law also. Case law is a body of law that may be described as best practices. So we will say about the case law best practices for decisions by the courts in relation to various cases that have already been tried. So case law means like we measure what happened in front of us now based on previous experience in the past by simulation. The judge will make his decision when based on something like this had been decision taken in it in the past. Another case in the past which is very similar. So I will measure this on this one. So I will make it by simulation. So here, when we say in relation to various cases that have already been tried before and judged before, case law of president is somewhat dynamic. In other words, is subject to review depending on the level of court and relevancy to other accepted standards such as statutes set out by Parliament and British common law. This is about the PIPEDA, and we talked about the PIPEDA before, and we said the acts which is governing the PIPEDA. The PIPEDA is the protection of the information, and the right to protect your information. Municipal bylaw is that of each city, like Toronto as example, they had their own municipal bylaw. Those comes to about the highways, the traffic. So these issues all goes to the municipal bylaw. The municipal code of the Ontario state delegates the authority of municipal to be given matters within their jurisdiction. Much of this code concerns rules of good governance and the collection of taxes. Other responsibilities covered include highway, so taxes, parkings, highway, the collection of taxes, the parkings, the highway, the transportation system like the TTC in Toronto here, structures such as building fences, the fences of the building, also this is municipal by law. And animal control, the animal control like and signs, the fence and signs, animal control, like this, there is some acts which is regulating, sorry for the one, like for everyone to clean after his dogs and cats, and if he did not do this, there should be a fine and should be offense later on. Okay, one area where okay, that is about the municipal bylaw. Now we'll move into another, the same figure we had before about the system of courts in Canada. And we have here the Supreme Court of Canada and the Court Marital Appeals and Military Courts. And here also goes the Provincial Courts of Appeal and the Federal Courts of Appeal. So we have Federal Courts for Appeal, Provincial Courts for Appeal, and Courts Marital Appeal. Okay. Marital is belong to the military or the army. So this is courts especially for the army, is separated from the civil courts, separated from, so the army is having a system, and also the taxes are having separated courts. Okay, so here the military or the army is having its own courts, and these courts also belong to the Court Marital Appeals, which is working also under the Supreme Court of Canada. And we talked before about the Supreme Court of Canada, and we said we have 9 Supreme Courts of Canada, and there must be 3 at least from Quebec. Okay. So also, like you see here, the Supreme Court is handling the marital appeals, the provincial courts appeals, and the federal court appeal. Okay, but still we have also for the federal courts, it accepts the trials of the federal court trial divisions and the tax courts, and also the administrative courts. So any decision will come from administrative or from federal court and tax courts goes to the federal courts of appeal. And finally, any one of them got no solution yet and still hang it up, then it will go to the Supreme Court of Canada. So here also, we have the provincial administrative tribunals, provincial courts, and here also to the superior of provincial courts, then provincial courts of appeal, then the Supreme Courts of Canada. Seems clear that the Supreme Court is there to like govern and control over these array of courts within all Canada. Federal and provincial, military and tax courts, all this at the end, if this case is not resolved and it's done for more appeal, then at the end, it goes to the Supreme Court of Canada. It goes at the end for the Supreme Court of Canada. And we said now that the job of the Supreme Court of Canada has 9 judges. It has 9 judges called justice, including the Chief Justice of Canada. The Supreme Court make decisions on appeal regarding questions of law, like here as example. Any appeal, like here appeal. So this is how it works. It works in the appeals regarding questions of law, and also provide decision regarding the constitutions of law passed by the parliament. So anything problem also regarding the constitutions or questions about the constitutions, it goes also to the Supreme Court of Canada. It goes also to the Supreme Court of Canada. Okay, so this is about the Supreme Court. Okay. We have also this is the Supreme Court, like we said, is overall, the overall of all the court system in the justice system in Canada. So including the Chief Justice of Canada, like we said, the Supreme Court makes decision on appeal regarding questions of law and also provide decisions regarding the constitutionality of law passed by the parliament. So any issue regarding the constitution, it goes also to it's handled in the Supreme Court of Canada. Any problem regarding the constitution itself. Federal Court of Appeal. This is the Federal Court of Appeal. Those we're talking about provincial, but this is Federal Court of Appeal here. So we talk about the Supreme, now we are talking about the Federal Court of Appeal. What about the Federal Court of the Appeal? What about it? The Federal Court of Appeal, this court reviews decisions made by certain administrative bodies, such as Immigration Board, etc. So anything regarding the administrative tribunals, it goes to the Federal Court of Appeal. Any administration problems, any administrative tribunals, once is not resolved on this level, it goes to the Federal Court of Appeal at the end. Tax courts of Canada. So because of the business nature of Canada, so the taxes are having their own courts. Taxes are usually for the pay, the taxes amounts, the personal tax and personal income tax, regarding also the goods and services taxes, the GST and HST. So all this goes to any issues regarding it will be handled in the tax courts. But also we have in the tax courts of Canada, this specialized division of the Federal Court of Appeal. The Federal Court Trial Division, we can see it here, the Federal Court Trial Division, this one, the Federal Court Trial Division. What's wrong with it? The Federal Court Trial Division judges of the federal court may sit as judges at the Court of Appeal and vice versa. However, this is not often practiced. This court makes decisions on federal matters such as privacy legislations. Okay. The Ontario Court of Appeal is also one of them and the Superior of Justice. Tort law, what do we mean by the tort law? And what is the importance of the tort law? Civil cases, it looks also always in the civil cases, like we said before, the civil cases are, there is another name which is called tort law. Civil cases deal with law related to contracts or tort, which are wrongful acts that result in injury or damage. Like we were talking before in the start itself, we said someone is damaged, then the branch which handles this problem is called tort law. To another person or another person's property, civil cases are initiated in two ways, as an action or as an application. Claims that are valued at $25,000 or less are usually heard in a small claims court. So if the amount is less than $25,000, then this is goes to small claim courts, not the big one. Which has a set of rules and procedures unique to this court system. So again, if the amount is less than $25,000, it goes to the simple or small amounts courts, which deal with amounts are less. The amount of issues or conflict is less than 25,000 or equals 25,000. But we have also the other side, which is more than 25,000. Section provides, this section provides information important of performing your job within lawful authority. Okay. The tort, we have intentional tort, such as battery, assault, injury a person, negligence, gross negligence, etc. So those are examples of intentional tort. The tort of injuries includes physical injuries, infliction, privacy, defamation, or injury to one's reputation. So even spoiling a person's reputation, saying about him that he's bad, his shop is bad, he don't do business, he cheat the people, but those all are kind of defamation. Defamation means you try to spoil the reputation of this person. You try to spoil the reputation of this person. This also goes under the tort law. So we want to say that tort is a willful or negligent wrong done by one person to another. And tort law addresses these wrong, providing remedies, including penalties. So if I now spoil the reputation of someone, I have to pay and compensate him for that reason. Okay, penalties and awards to balance the scale of justices. Some examples of wrong covered by tort law that concerns, okay, the concept of agency or one person acting for another, duty of care. This is also about liability, negligence. The negligence is very important. That means what? A term meaning a failure to use reasonable care. I don't care about the work. That's called negligence. Or I didn't do my duty as I supposed to do it, my job, as I supposed to do my job. This is called all negligence. Negligence. And this also under the umbrella of the tort law. So these issues are handled in the tort law. Okay. So thus all negligence may not depend upon the intent of a person, but resulting injury sustained and their ability to perform the action. Willful misconduct. This is another example for the tort law. Willful misconduct. intentional or conscious disregard of for the rights or safety of others. Or now I know very well that this wire might cause a problem, but I keep it. I don't care about it, though it might harm the others when an individual intends doing what they did. So here today we talk about many things. We talk about the selling goods and the absolute sale. So we know about the absolute sale. So I will take some questions now and say, define absolute sale, absolute sale in business law. This is the first question. Define absolute sales in business law. So this is the first question today. The second question today, which I'll take, is two. Those are questions we will work on it right now, so that will make sure that, okay. Second question is express condition. What do we mean by express condition? What do we mean? What do we mean by expressed condition in selling contracts, sale contracts? So what do you mean by express conditions? Express conditions are those conditions that must be essential to be written in the sales contract. Like we said before, they are, we call it express because it must be written in the sales contract. As example, like terms of delivery, terms of payment, the amount of money for the sales, also the discounts if there is any, where to deliver the goods, at the buyer shop or at the seller shop. So all these are must be written, and the amount of the deal, and if there is any discount, if payment occurred within limited days. So all this must be written is expressive, and the standard of the quality, which is agreed upon by the two sides, the buyer and the seller. All this must be written. We call it express conditions. But the implied is not the same. Implied means it's not written there, but it's known logically. As example, like I say, I am the seller, and in between the person who has the power to sell. It's logically, you don't need to write it because you know that the seller is the one who has the right to sell. 3, what are the employed conditions in sale contract? Give examples. Like I told you, the example is like, I know very well that I don't need to write, I am the seller, blah, 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 who has the right to sell. There is no need to write this sentence because it's known that you are seller, so that you logically or implied, you have the right to sell. So there is no need to write it. Also, once we say, mention here also a question, very important question, mention points, examples from Canadian Charter of Rights. Canadian Charters of Rights. So mention examples from Canadian Charter of Rights. This also is another example. So here we have the 4 points. Those are the 4 questions which I want you to care about today. Define the absolute sales in business law. What do you mean by express contracts? What are the implied conditions in sales? Give examples. Mention some examples of the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom, of course. So we call it Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedom. You can say the freedom of traveling, the freedom of moving, the freedom of working in a place. And you can take some points from the criminal as the accused is non-guilty until it's proven that he's guilty, is innocent until he's proven he's guilty. All those are rights. And the rights not to detain a person under arrest. All those are rights guaranteed by the Charter of Rights and Freedom, which is one of the acts of the Canadian Constitution that was established in 1982. So this was our lecture for today. Thank you so much. Take care of yourself. Have a very good day.